Night folds itself softly around a house that has forgotten its own heart. Into that hush comes a child whose footsteps sound like questions on old stone. A child sent from far warmth to a place where the air is cool and the rooms are wide. The corridors stretch like muted rivers. She carries a small stubbornness with her, a seed of refusal wrapped in loneliness. In that seed there is also a fierce little spark of life that does not know how to give up looking. The house breathes, slow, drafty, uncertain. Somewhere behind its many locked doors, something waits. Something that has slept through seasons and storms and the habit of not being seen. As the child listens to the wind sketching its name on the windows, she feels the first tug of a mystery. Not sharp and urgent, but steady, like a string tied to a kite that is just now remembering the sky. Morning arrives pale as milk. With it comes the geography of a life that is not yet hers. A maze of hedges trimmed to obedience, paths that bend and bend again, walls blank with ivy and silence, and a groundskeeper with eyes like unpolished stone who speaks in practical measures. He tells her where she may wander and where she may not. She nods because nodding is easier than saying I am hungry for something I cannot name. She explores anyway, counting steps. Tracing the way, a forgotten corner makes its own weather. Learning the dialect of birds and the way a robin can look at you as if it is holding a secret it might share if you prove capable of delight. In the stretched afternoon, a whisper of rumour slips from a maid's tongue. An old story about a door in a wall, about a place that vanished when grief laid its shadow like frost, a place that once had laughter clinging to it the way dew clings to grass, a place left to tangle and tangle until memory itself could not find the latch. The child takes the rumour in her pocket and feeds it like a tame wild thing. At dusk, she follows the robin's red thread of attention to a thicket. The air smells different there, green and patient, and there, half swallowed by ivy, a key sleeps in the ground, as if the earth itself has been keeping guard. To find a key is one thing, and to find its door is another. But some puzzles belong to those who will stay curious through the boredom of failed tries. So she goes on, day after day, into wind that tastes of rain and rooms that taste of dust. Piecing together the map the world offers in crumbs, a loosened stone, a wind shift, a leaf that shivers where no breeze has passed, until at last her hand brushes a patch of wall that does not feel like wall at all. She presses there, and something yields. The green curtain parts, and a door waits with the shy dignity of a creature that remembers being welcomed. In her palm, the key becomes a promise that keeps its word when metal meets metal. The lock turns with a sound like a throat clearing after too long without singing. The gate opens upon a space the world has almost given up on. A room without a ceiling, a sip of sky kept safe from all the shouting days. Everything in it is asleep in the good, deep way that happens when sleep has done its work and is nearly ready to become waking. Branches tangled but not dead, earth mounded with last year's stories, a bench listening to itself rust. The child stands at the threshold without moving, because to step in too quickly would be rude to a place so brave in its waiting. Then she steps, and the ground answers with that tiny shift a body feels when two companions recognize each other. The air around her warms a fraction. Somewhere a stem considers a risk. She kneels and presses her small hand to the soil, and finds it alive, cool and dark and steady. This steadiness arranges itself inside her chest, where before there had only been the echo of empty halls. The hours that follow are not dramatic, but they are holy. Holiness seldom announces itself with trumpets, so she measures it with a trowel and a length of twine. And the careful act of asking a plant what name it prefers. With each weed lifted, with each reluctant knot of root untangled, she discovers a new grammar for her hands and a new patience for her breath. The garden echoes her learning, not with applause, but with willingness. Buds that might open, leaves that might shine. A scent that might unroll like a ribbon when the sun remembers to wander here. She cannot do it alone, and the garden knows this. So the world answers her, asking with a companion whose laugh has pockets full of skylark. Who knows the plain words plants understand? Warmth, water, weight. Together they move through the quiet tangle like two notes that have found their chord. The child with her stubborn seed growing into purpose. The companion with a kindness that is not surprised by miracles because they are, after all, simply truth asking to be seen. Days stitch themselves into a living cloth. As the cloth grows, the house changes color from the edges inward, the way twilight teaches blue to green. The child who once kept her shoulders lifted like a wall learns the soft courage of letting them fall. In that falling, she finds a corridor she had not noticed before, a seldom used path lined with portraits that watch without accusation, and at the end, a door that owns a silence different from the house's other silences, a hush older than dust and more tender than neglect. Within it, a boy sleeps inside a belief that he is too fragile for the wind. A boy wrapped in the careful fear of those who love but do not trust the body to love its life. A boy who has been taught that walls are safer than weather. She does not fling the curtains open or declare him wrong. She sits and breathes and tells him there is a place that remembers laughter without demanding it, a place made of patience and shy green, a place that has been waiting for two pairs of hands and a third, if he is willing. In the long pause that follows, she feels the garden's breath in her own lungs and remembers that invitation is stronger than command. It takes time for a belief to loosen its grip, just as it takes time for a seed to believe the dark is something to push against rather than yield to forever. So she does not hurry the boy's fear, she befriends it, visiting daily with stories about the robin who argues with the sky, about a branch that cracked and then healed itself with praise, about earth that fits in a palm like a promise and stains it like a blessing, until one afternoon, as the wind leans its ear to the window, the boy asks what the air smells like in that hidden room without a ceiling. She tells him it smells like rain that has learned your name. He smiles with part of his mouth like a door learning its hinges, and says he would like to find out if that is true. The house tries to argue with its old habits. A doctor clears his throat and lists reasons and measurements. A caretaker knits worry into warnings. But the garden's patience has begun to bloom in more than one heart. A quiet alliance forms. The girl and the boy, and the companion with the skylark laugh, and the old gardener whose eyes soften around their edges when the map of his estate is read as a story rather than as property, and the maid whose rumour started this, and even the wind, which holds the door without boasting, smuggled beneath blankets of permission, come blankets of courage. The boy's chair becomes a chariot. The long, unvisited corridor becomes a river. The world beyond the door swells to meet him, with a tenderness that has nothing to do with frailty and everything to do with welcome. He is frightened at first, because new air is a kind of truth, and truth can be a bright thing after a lifetime of shade. But the garden is good at shading where shade is needed, and warming where warmth is called for. So he is placed beneath a trellis where sunlight falls in small, manageable coins. The robin, who recognizes a heart learning to beat for more than its own fear, lands near enough to tilt its head into conversation. The boy listens to its simple grammar: here, now, seed, eat, sing, and finds himself answering with the one syllable his body has been storing for years. Yes. Work is a medicine no bottle sells, and the garden dispenses it without small print. Fingers browned by soil, a back learning the curve of effort, a laugh arriving without being scheduled, a tiredness that enters the bones, not like a thief but like a friend pulling up a chair. As the boy learns to stand for a moment and then for two, and as the moments braid themselves into minutes, and the minutes into the soft rope of an afternoon, a miracle occurs so slowly that no drumroll could keep time with it. The miracle of belief relocating from the mind's anxious shelves into the body's bright chambers. The miracle of appetite where there had been only dread. The miracle of a glance toward a gate, not to check for escape, but to greet a horizon. The house notices. Walls that once hummed with loneliness take up a tune in a different key. Footsteps accumulate into the music of company. Laughter, small at first, returns to practice and improves. Rumours travel back down the same tongues that once carried fear, but now prefer to carry recipes and weather. Someone brings a fiddle into a room that has only ever heard clocks, and the clocks, to their credit, keep time with the music instead of insisting the music keep time with them. Nothing impossible happens, and yet everything impossible happens. This is what occurs when a locked place becomes a loved place. The length of a life seems to change because meaning has altered the size of hours. There is a day when the boy runs a little and stops and laughs because his body has satisfied a question it didn't have permission to ask before. There is a day when the girl, standing at the gate at dusk, with dirt under her nails and satisfaction in her bones, realizes that the ache she used to call loneliness has been tilled and watered and grown into belonging. It fits her so well, she has forgotten the shape of the old ache. The garden does not end, it cycles. In its cycling, it teaches an arithmetic different from the harsh tallies the world sometimes prefers. 1 seed equals 100 afternoons, equals 1,000 small reasons to stay. 1 hand placed kindly on another equals a pathway where before there was a wall. 1 laugh equals a weather change, no forecast predicted. 1 door opening equals a language remembered by everything that knows how to grow. Because the earth is shrewd in its mercies, there comes a day when the children carry the map of this hidden place in their bodies so completely that they could shut their eyes and walk to any corner without stumbling. Because they know this, they also know the garden is ready to be less secret. It has healed as much as privacy can heal, and now needs sun and the gaze of others to keep its courage green. So the gate is left ajar for those who come with clean hands or washable hearts. From the village arrive people who have remained hungry for beauty without permission to say so. They step in and their faces rearrange themselves into softer versions. No sign is posted except the way the wind says please and the robins say thank you, and the bench says sit and the soil says yes. In quiet moments when dusk is melting into the first stars and the house is breathing like a creature that has been forgiven for forgetting, the children sit side by side and listen to the garden talk to itself, root to root, leaf to leaf. Old rose canes whispering to this year's green tips. They understand that what they helped restore was not only a room without a ceiling, but a way of being without a lock. The permission to become, to mend, to be mended, to stand and to stumble, and to stand again with laughter's hand under the elbow. The child who arrived with a seed of refusal now keeps a pocket full of seeds with other names: attention, patience, kindness, courage. She sows them in places that look like walls, because she has learned walls can, with time and touch, learn to be trellises. The boy who believed himself breakable now wears his strength like sunlight wears leaves, without swagger, simply by being present. He carries his story not as a shield, but as a lantern to show other frightened hearts the outline of a door they might one day open. The garden, which asked for little and gave so much, continues in its work that looks like leisure, and its leisure that looks like work. Ripening, resting, teaching every passer-by the generous arithmetic of life, how the smallest unlocked thing remakes a house, how the patience of soil remakes a child, how the shared discovery that there was always a green room waiting remakes a world, not with speeches or drums, but with steady hands and the choreography of breathing in, breathing out, and beginning again.